They're lurking in the shadows, preying on the curious. UFO grifters and scammers, making us delirious. They're taking over the community, spreading lies and deceit, but we won't let them win. We won't admit defeat. UFO grifters, UFO scammers, trying to take over the world like a bad dream. Every balloon in the sky, every light in the night. The media runs with it like aliens in flight. Don't get me started on those ancient aliens. Frauds, spreading misinformation like it's sent from the gods. They twist the truth, they bend the facts, but we see through their lies. We're not buying their acts. Take over the world like a bad dream. Every balloon in the sky, every light in the night. The media runs with it like aliens in flight. But we won't be fooled, we won't be swayed, we'll keep searching for the truth. We won't be afraid, we'll dance to the rhythm of our own beat and kick those grifters right off their feet. So let's keep our eyes on the sky and our minds open wide. We'll uncover the mysteries with truth on our side. No more grifters. No more scams. We'll dance to the beat of our own UFO jam.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. It has been a busy couple of days while I was away working on real-world accomplishments, and other things in my life, but certainly I was paying attention. The big news of the last few days that I haven't reported on or talked about much is sort of the latest in what I call as the flying saucer returns. There's always some kind of drama going on. This person got caught in a lie, or this person got caught in a lie. And we're going to be getting into all of that tonight. The other issue is interesting that a lot of people have been asking me about this latest whistleblower, Jason Sands. And then specifically, people keep asking me if this Jason Sands, who at least by my own observation, is kind of a wackadoo. He's talking about blue aliens and tall white aliens. Two forms of aliens that we know were invented by and promoted by complete and total frauds. One being Charles Hall, who was a stolen valor fraud who was never in the Air Force, though he claimed to be. Of course, he met those tall white aliens while he was in the Air Force, until you start checking into his background and find out Charles Hall was never in the United States Air Force. So his whole story begins with, when I was in the Air Force, I met these tall white aliens. His story completely and totally falls apart. Then, of course, we have Corey Goode, who admitted under oath that those aliens came from him, or he channeled this information, or various other excuses, admitting that all of his secret space adventures in which he claimed that he met these aliens never happened because he'd never even been to space. And he admitted that under oath. So when we get to Jason Sands, we get him repeating known con artists, fake, alien storytellers' narratives, or using parts of their stories, like the tall white aliens or the blue avians, in his own stories. Interestingly, so many people have asked me, is Jason Sands one of David Grush's 40 so-called whistleblowers? And up until today, it was my opinion that yes, he was. And I believed that all of David Grush's whistleblowers are people like alleged whistleblowers, are people like Jason Sands, people who talk a tremendous amount of smack but have no actual evidence and are a bit on the wackadoo side. But today, we finally have confirmation from Jason Sands himself. Jason Sands himself is claiming, yes, I am one of those so-called whistleblowers. So here it is. This is from Skyfire News, but I actually sent this out before them, but they did a better job here with the nice graphics, so we're going to use them. Shout out to Skyfire News. UFO whistleblower Jason Sands affirms that he was one of David Grush's 40 witnesses and that he was publicly snubbed by the inner circle for coming out in a Twitter space. So Arthur Preston said, this is all on UFO Twitter, of course, I have a theory that at Jason Sands, I'm not going to read all that. He's got a wacky at on Twitter or X. We'll just say at Jason Sands was one of the 40 witnesses Grush interviewed, and that all the talk about something big happening in the first half of 2024 was in reference to Jason going public. But the Twitter space was not planned, and Jason was a bit too open about some of his more out there experiences for the inner circle's liking, so they decided to snub him. And Jason Sands replies to this tweet saying, "You are correct." There's a lot of division about this Jason Sands guy here. We see somebody says, people need to stop giving that clown attention. At best, he's Richard Doty 2.0, misleading people and poisoning people's opinions of whistleblowers. Zeta Reticulan ass gerbler, greatest user ID on UFO Twitter. He said, so much for any credibility Grush had. I wonder how many of Grush's biologics were blue avians. Should have responded with that is correct. Yes, Chris Farley. Well, that list just went down the toilet as Sands was interviewed. And Tim McMillan says he is not. So this is the back and forth that we get in UFO land. They are essentially, saying, hey, this guy is not associated with us in our inner circle. And we did see that they really did sort of snub him, which was interesting to see. Yeah. And let me get the proper background going here. So this is interesting because it confirms the general theory that David Grush has no real credible witnesses that he interviewed. He's got essentially a bunch of wackadoos. And we know that some of those wackadoos include people like Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff, Jacques Vallée, the same people that have been perpetrating these myths and promoting these same ideas, the crash retrievals, the back engineering for decades and never proving anything. So I think this is another real problematic situation for so-called Dave Grush supporters because, let's get a statement from Dave Grush. Did you interview Jason Sands? Did he tell you about the tall white aliens that don't exist and the blue avian aliens that he met? Right? And what about this catastrophic disclosure event where the aliens said, if we don't give back the alien biologics by a certain time, then those people responsible are going to be murdered? I mean, welcome to this clown show. David Grush claimed to have interviewed all these people. If this is truly the caliber of the people that Dave Grush is basing his congressional testimony on, then they're both wackadoos. There, I said it. They're both wackadoos. But don't take it from me. There's a recent article about the latest whistleblower, Jason Sands, by Brian Dunning of Skeptoid, which I think really does shed an awful lot of light on this whole situation. You'll pardon me for making it so big. It just makes it easier for me to read. So this is by Brian Dunning, posted today, and I thought that he nailed it so much that I wanted to share this with you. Be sure to visit Brian's bullshit-free zone, and the link to this wonderful article is in the description of this video or podcast you're listening to or watching. Be sure to support the good people who are telling you the truth. And Brian says in this article, if you are unfortunate enough to have UFO news thrust at you on a daily basis, you may have heard there's a, quote, new, unquote, UFO whistleblower, a guy named Jason Sands. This news is already a few weeks old, but since almost no information was available at first, I figured I'd let it percolate for a bit. Here's my post-percolation assessment. The previous whistleblower, Dave Grush, turned out to be a huge disappointment to the UFO community. All he knew were that a few famous old UFO stories that he'd heard from friends. And when asked about it officially, he refused to be interviewed. And the stories he told were those that experienced historians of UFO mythology have long known to have been hoaxes. So the UFO community moved on down the line to the next guy. This is Jason Sands, a retired Air Force veteran. He served from 1985 to 2007, first in aircraft structural maintenance, then for the majority of his career in 1N671 electronic system security assessment, finally retiring with the rank of Master Sergeant. Would a Master Sergeant working in electronic system security assessment have access to the government's most secret information about alien visitors? Here's the job's description. Emulates the role of a hostile intelligence by collecting, analyzing, and processing Department of Defense telecommunications, such as telephone, computer-to-computer, facsimile, radio, and wireless transmissions. Applies analytical processes and determines critical information potentially compromised and exploited by HOIS threats. Peacetime support focuses on identifying adverse operation security, OPSEC, trends and practices. Contingency and exercise support focus on force protection, supervises electronic system security assessment operations, including initial and in-depth analysis of monitored friendly telecommunications, performs analysis and reporting functions at theater level ESSA centrals, ESSAC, briefs commanders at all levels of potential intelligence vulnerabilities. So that's the guy. Thank you for your service, Master Sergeant Sands. What's his connection with this whole UFO movement? Well, UFO filmmaker James Fox, whose films to date have dramatized and rehashed long debunked UFO stories, says he's making a movie that will feature Sands to be released later this year, entitled The Program. Fox wrote on Twitter, "Those who know me are familiar with my work. I fiercely go the extra mile to weed out unsupportable claims. I have spent the last year conducting numerous interviews, researching claims, and doing my best to verify within my means people's credentials and the veracity of their statements. As part of this mix, I met with Mr. Jason Sands a little over a year ago, concerning whom there has arisen fierce debates on social media concerning his claims of official involvement in the UAP area and specific experiences associated with such. As part of my due diligence, I can state that he is who he says he is, has served in the military, and is willing to testify under oath and even take a polygraph test regarding his claims. Nonetheless, as with other whistleblowers who go public, this doesn't mean that what he has stated shouldn't be questioned regarding apparent inconsistencies and difficult to resolve claims. Evaluation of such continues to be a work in progress." So on, Brian Dunning goes on to write, "So on to those incredible secrets Sands claims to know. You can get the comprehensive list in this 5-hour podcast, but if you, like me, lack the patience to give him 5 hours of your life, here's an AI-generated summary of it. Some key points. Jason Sands believes the Wilson Davis memo is genuine. This is an obviously hoaxed, ridiculous document purporting to be 2002 discourse between Admiral Thomas Wilson and Skinwalker Ranch ghost hunter Eric Davis and other characters. 2, most alien spacecraft recovered use electromagnetic propulsion. Next, aliens participated, though reluctantly, in these reverse engineering programs. Next, many UFO reports of metallic spheres are in fact alien spacecraft, and he knows all about them, including the various types and their purposes. Next, there is a blue alien species that we can communicate telepathically with them. Next, some aliens are non-physical and can help us with our intelligence programs. Next, private industry and the government cooperate to suppress information about UFOs. Next, underground bases where we keep aliens, time travel, remote viewing, aliens and spiritual transdimensional beings. Yeah, all that stuff is real. Sands also claimed to be part of the U.S. Navy's short-lived UAP task force, but then quickly told New York Post Stephen Greenstreet that he hadn't actually. As is the case with nearly every veteran who comes forward to reveal the classified information he knows about aliens, Sands doesn't seem to have run into any trouble violating Department of Defense confidentiality protocols. Why not? As Lieutenant Colonel Hal Bidlack, retired, explained in the UFO movie when I asked him about another ufologist who has spoken freely on podcasts about his experiences. Quote, "It tells you that the Air Force doesn't care, which strongly suggests that it's fiction. And as we know, fiction isn't classified." Mr. Dunning goes on to write, "I expect the James Fox movie, should it materialize, will give the alien truther community everything they want. It will confirm all their wishes and will probably earn a nice chunk of dough. And then it will be quickly forgotten as nothing in it will hold up. And we'll be on to the next UFO whistleblower." Yeah, I couldn't have wrote it better myself. It's a rinse and repeat. This is the way these things generally go. And I, for one, am getting sick of the merry-go-round, right? Oh, look, this Grush guy, he's real credible. And within a year, Grush's whole story falls apart, is mostly fake. We get the stunning revelation that it has been, 343 days now. We're talking 22 days, friends, until Grush has been out there a year telling alien fairy tales, and he still hasn't shown any evidence. So I, for one, I have grown tired of this constant rinse and repeat, and we've seen this cycle so many times, and I've talked about it over and over ad nauseum. All of these people overpromise, they overhype, they over-sensationalize, which inevitably leads to the big letdown, because they can't deliver on all their promises of all of these things being true, because none of them have any goddamn evidence. And isn't that sort of what you shouldn't evidence be the starting point? But it isn't. Claims, allegations, story time is where things start, and then you wait for the evidence, right? Yes, and I'd be happy to answer that. Wetbutt, what evidence could he show? This is an honest question. I'm in the middle of all these guys, but what can he do without going to jail? First of all, you people that all say, oh, he'll go to jail if he shows us. You fell for the alien scammer runaround. These are false talking points. Wet butt 79, great user ID. No, he wouldn't go to jail. He can say anything he wants about alien bodies, alien crash retrievals, alien back engineering, because the Office of Pre-Publication at the Pentagon cleared him to talk about all those things, which means they're not classified. He could provide some evidence. He could provide some proof, but he's been hiding behind excuses for why he can't show us proof for almost a year now. You know why he can't show us proof? Because all of his sources of information are wackadoos like this Jason Sands wackadoo, or Eric Davis, or Hal Puthoff, or the Skinwalker scam crew. That's where he got all these stories from. And if we extrapolate that all the people telling him the stories have no evidence, then we can come to a conclusion that therefore Dave Grush has no evidence to share. That's why he's not showing evidence. No, he wouldn't be arrested. Bullshit, right? These are convenient excuses of the UFO grift squad. Do you know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars all the people pushing the Grush story have made collectively? Go add it up. Those monetized YouTube videos add up fast. I'm sure that News Nation is up to millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of monetized views, all covering Dave Grush's evidence-free, trust me, bro stories. So, obviously there's built-in motive to continue to keep the story going. Obviously, these UFO grifting scumbag whores that are selling these lies have a built-in motive to keep the story going, to keep making excuses. Now we've got Ross Coulthart saying, oh no, the ICIG is investigating his alien and UFO claims, and Kirkpatrick doesn't know what he's talking about. Bullshit. There's no way on God's green earth that a foreign national like Ross Coulthart would know the status of an intelligence community inspector general investigation. And, I, for one, hope that the Intelligence Community Inspector General wraps up that investigation and releases a public statement so we can put all of these false UFO grifter scumbag talking points to rest. Again, the ICIG is not investigating Grush's alien or UFO claims. They're just not. Find me an on the record statement. They never called his alien and UFO claims urgent and credible. They were talking about his complaint about reprisals. They take every complaint of reprisal to be urgent and credible, and they investigate those. That's what they're investigating, whether he was reprised against. But it may turn out that what Grush was doing was not proper. He may have been leaking things to grifters like Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp that he shouldn't have been leaking, and that's why his clearance got pulled. We will not know the truth of this whole Grush story. I'm betting for 2 more years. It's going to take 2 more years for the government to figure this all out. We want to take a moment to thank Chuck Bam. This is an operation with only a grift component. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. We appreciate you, Chuck Bam, longtime show supporter. And we've also got Christopher Wester, who's also a member. Thank you for being a member and your kind and generous 10-pound super chat. Who says, I get the grifters like Bell Knapp, but what are the Mellon gang up to? Why not have psyops about Smurfs? The colors are not that off. Yes. Well, listen, many people, have asked me, like, well, what is Mellon doing involved in this? He's from the Mellon banking family. I even talked to his cousin about this, John William Warner, who, by the way, apparently has vanished from social media again. I haven't heard from him. I'm going to check in with them for the benefit of those who have asked me. But yeah, what is he doing involved in this? I think, like many people, rich people are not immune to conspiracy theories. And it wasn't that long before Christopher Mellon was all chips in on the government has alien spaceships that he was saying he has been at the highest levels of government. He's seen no evidence of alien visitation on Earth or alien spaceships or any of that. So he did a complete 180, which is interesting. And then, people say, well, he doesn't need the money. What's he doing scamming people, allegedly, with the To the Stars Academy alleged techno scam? And the truth is, I don't know. But one thing I do know, I've known some very wealthy people. Once they have enough money, they want fame and they want power. So it could be that at work. I really don't know, Christopher Wester, but I've offered you my best ideas about that, and I hope that will suffice. So 1 second here. We want to take a moment to thank all of you for your kindness, generosity, and support, and of course for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, 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 praise you.
Thank both of you guys. Okay, so we're going to continue. Now, I suppose we'll get into the latest controversy, which, I get, I can't tell you how many nasty messages I got from people on the True Believer side. Wait, before we move on, I have some excellent information from Charlie Weiser about Jason Sands, and Jason is closely associated with this whistleblower known as Steve. And Steve is the guy who told his blue alien story after reading it on the DoD message board. Jason would not repeat that part of the story, presumably because of his NDA with James Fox. Anyway, in 2021, this Steve whistleblower interviewed Anjali on his own time, and she predicted a major world event within the next 30 days in a specific location, a message from the beings to prove they're real and to get her case in front of the higher-ups. But then the prediction didn't come true. This didn't hinder Steve's belief in her, of course, and apparently not Jason's either. So I guess we can exclusively report here that both this Steve whistleblower and this Jason Sands are very closely associated with Anjali. You remember her. We busted her entire original story as completely and totally fake. That was the former Air Force and former Defense Intelligence Agency information warfare specialist who suddenly came on the UFO scene and started telling tales about interacting with aliens in a tunnel inside a mountain in an alien secret base. Just one problem. It turned out there was no tunnel. There was no alien secret base. And basically, she was on all kinds of drugs when she had her experience. Her entire original story came crashing down as fake. Then she went on Gaia TV and told the same exact original story as if we here at Truth Seekers didn't go to the mat, find her original witnesses to the original event who refute all of her alien bullshit. We busted her story completely. So why are these two supposed whistleblowers? And by the way, I didn't connect the dots. I remember this Steve person while I was originally covering Anjali being real nasty to me and saying how much we need to support experiencers and all of this stuff. And how I was nasty to her because I yelled at her. Yeah, I lost my temper after being manipulated by this very manipulative, psyop-trained woman for 6 months, and I lost it live on air. You can the clips in our shorts. I said none of those things exist because they didn't. So Jason Sands and this Steve person closely associated with a known UFO lying, grifting scumbag. Well, actually, I don't even think you could call Anjali a grifter. I think you call her a spotlight hound scumbag because she did have a book and a documentary deal planned. But then when everybody started like saying, oh, this is just about money, then she canceled those plans. So maybe grifter is not the appropriate word. Hoaxer, certainly attention seeking, spotlight seeking hoaxer. In Anjali, these two whistleblowers are closely associated with somebody who lied through their teeth about meeting aliens in a goddamn tunnel. Are we getting the wackadoo vibes yet? Because I sure am. That basically means that this Steve person and this Jason Sands are complete and total wackadoos. But guess who interviewed them? I bet you. We know for sure Grush interviewed Sands. Do you think he interviewed Anjali? Do you think he interviewed this Steve person? So this Steve person says, I am ex-DOD. This is from Anjali. I've placed my name and experiences in the right places with the right folks in Congress. Steve, the whistleblower wrote up Anjali's informal off-the-clock interview with him for the UAPTF, which Anjali later spun on Reddit like this: "I've placed my name and experiences in the right places with the right folks in Congress." What a bunch of bullshitters these people are. So the Steve whistleblower came out first and told Jason's story, which I'm sure Jason and Fox were pissed about. This is Charlie Weiser telling me this, by the way. I'm reading from a message. Jason himself came forward. They are both friends with Anjali since connecting with Anjali in 2021. Oh, it's one big happy wackadoo family full of wackadoos, isn't it? And as far as Steve, Charlie Weiser comments that his entire story is some sort of psychotic fugue he had in early 2022. And he drove to Anjali's house to recover for a few days. They connected after he heard about her story in 2021. He kept trying to tell his boss and colleagues about aliens talking to him, and they sent him to psych, and he lost his job, which Steve, of course, thinks is just a big cover-up because he got too close to the truth, the program about aliens. So what we see when we really look into this stuff is that all these wackadoos are connected. And it says a lot about these new whistleblowers, so-called whistleblowers, credibility, that they're directly connected with somebody else who called themselves or was called an alien whistleblower. And then her story turned out to be completely and totally fucking fake. Anjali is fake as shit. There, I said it. And, I'm just, I can't believe it. Patty says, allowing people like Anjali to continue in their fantasy without calling them out doesn't help anyone. Wreaking Havoc says, these clowns destroyed ufology. Well, I think before these clowns, there was an awful lot that's filled with clowns. There was other clowns before these clowns. And, I just don't understand how people don't see through the layers of deception to see things like, oh, all these people are connected. All these people are definitely connected. Anjali is connected to Jason Sands, and this guy Steve is connected to Anjali, and Jason Sands is connected to Dave Grush, and Dave Grush is connected to Eric Davis, Hal Putoff, Jacques Vallée, and other wackadoos. It's one big wackadoo family pushing this complete false narrative that's evidence-free. Hey, we don't need evidence, just keep pushing. And when one guy gets found out to be a bullshitter, they put out another one. Like clockwork. Grush's story starts coming crashing down. All of a sudden, this Jason Sands guy's in Twitter Spaces telling everybody he's a whistleblower, right? And essentially, his claims are that he listened in to a lot of phone calls while he was working for the government and heard all about those aliens. And if you just buy James Fox's newest documentary for $39.95, you'll hear all about those aliens. No, this wouldn't happen to be a profit-driven, evidence-free fake story, would it? Would it? Yeah, it would. And that's the thing, right? So what I could tell you about Jason Sands is that knowing his claims that have already been kind of laughed at, and then knowing that he's pulling information directly from completely and totally discredited sources like Corey Good and Charles Hall, I don't think there's a high likelihood that he has any real information or any verifiable proof of anything he says. But I don't know. Time will tell. Now, on to the other big controversy, which is the Sean Kirkpatrick situation. And I'm going to share my screen here just to share our thumb there. One second here. Yeah, so this is interesting. So Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick and the Skinwalker Ranch briefing scandal. So essentially, what happened is that Stephen Greenstreet of the New York Post, in his bombshell of an interview with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, former head of the Pentagon's UFO task force, AARO, So Greenstreet asks him about something Brandon Fugel said. Brandon Fugel told Greenstreet in a previous interview about Skinwalker Ranch that on April 19th, 2018, my team from Skinwalker Ranch was asked to provide a confidential briefing in Washington, D.C. to the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and the United States Armed Services Committee. Sean Kirkpatrick was at the head of the table. So Greenstreet asks Kirkpatrick about this, and he says, I wasn't in a meeting with them. I don't recall being in a briefing about Skinwalker Ranch. But it turns out that Mr. Brandon Fugel saved some receipts. He had pictures, this picture taken featuring Kirkpatrick sitting at the meeting. But Brandon Fugel went a little further and claimed that he was running the meeting, which is interesting. And when asked in the interview, well, we're just going to go through the interview, but when asked in the interview, Sean Kirkpatrick essentially says, I'm sure I might have been in some sort of briefing in 2017, but by 2018, I was in Colorado. I wouldn't have been in Washington, D.C. for a briefing. And yet, here we are. There's proof he was in this briefing with Brandon Fugel, and proof that it was about Skinwalker Ranch. Now, part of me wants to give him a pass. Like, do you remember what you were doing in 2017 every day? What meetings you attended? What the subjects of those meetings were? Maybe he's just a little, mistaken, but I don't want to give him a pass. One of the things that is important to note here is that Kirkpatrick has essentially just destroyed Dave Grush, Lou Elizondo, the whole false narrative that they were pushing. And up until this situation, I would say Kirkpatrick hasn't been caught lying. All these other people have. And isn't it interesting that the true believers, I think this is great, the true believers who all hate Stephen Greenstreet's guts were forced to clip out that and claim, see, Kirkpatrick is a proven liar now. I think that that's a little bit strong, but I'm not here to defend him. I think Kirkpatrick, especially after Brandon Fugel showed his evidence that he indeed was at a meeting on that date, April 19th, 2018, in Washington, D.C. He was seated at the briefing. I think that Kirkpatrick he should release a public statement clarifying what's going on here. And it's also very interesting that according to Mr. Greenstreet of the New York Post, he can't get any answers about this briefing, which really does, it raises more questions than answers, because if the government is just like bringing in paranormal claimants for their own, for their own entertainment purposes, but apparently there are some high-ranking senators that requested or wanted information from this briefing, and it appears that congressional staffers invited Mr. Kirkpatrick to observe this briefing and give his opinion. Now, there's plenty of things I could speculate on. Like maybe one of the reasons that Sean Kirkpatrick doesn't really remember this meeting is because he thought that Skinwalker Ranch is a work of fiction, like Ancient Aliens, which is also on the History Channel. Maybe he just attended this meeting out of courtesy and didn't really pay attention. But I find it amazing that he doesn't remember that he was sitting in this meeting. Brandon Fugel also released the PowerPoint presentation slides, which clearly show that the whole presentation is about Skinwalker Ranch. So what is going on here? Why does Sean Kirkpatrick not remember this meeting? Is he being honest when he says he doesn't remember the meeting? Is he obfuscating like perhaps other parts of the government are? After all, there is some real indications that the government is somewhat embarrassed over their involvement with Skinwalker Ranch. After all, these are the people that wasted $22 million studying dino beavers and werewolves, right? These are the same group of people. I think Hal Puthoff's in there, Lukatsky, right? The whole gang's here, all the wackadoos, right? And they've been making these claims about Skinwalker Ranch and wasting government time and resources and taxpayer dollars for a long time now. And this, to me, is a waste of taxpayer dollars. Why do you have to have a meeting in Washington, D.C. about the Skinwalker scam crew? Right? I don't understand it. I don't really get it, but it is what it is. So I want to go next to Stephen Greenstreet's interview of Kirkpatrick, and we'll see. Maybe we'll go through the whole thing. I'm not really sure. I was going to go through this last week, but honestly, I was waiting to see if more information would come out about, to clarify this situation, because now we have a situation where Kirkpatrick is saying one thing and Brandon Fugel's saying another, but to his credit, I'll give credit where credit is due. Brandon Fugel had the receipts and said, here you go. So this is from Stephen Greenstreet's Twitter, which is in the description of our video here. It's at Middle of Mayhem on Twitter, X. The Pentagon's UFO hunter spent 18 months looking for aliens and found none. Instead, he found a core group of religious UFO believers, some inside the government, pushing false stories to a clickbait-hungry mainstream media. And this, I want to play this clip. We'll put our fair use banner up. This is fair use. This is transformative work. We're educating the public. I want to play this clip because this few-minute clip here really sort of makes the point of why so many true believers hate this guy, why so many fake Pentagon UFO program director supporters that support a completely and totally fake Pentagon UFO program director in the form of Lou Elizondo, why they hate this guy so much. This guy is the devil. Because essentially, he smacks down so much of the UFO Griff Squad's bullshit.
Did you find any evidence of alien or non-human technology?
No.
Did you find any evidence of alien bodies or the bodies of non-human intelligence?
No.
No evidence of aliens? But what about the hundreds of media stories from the last 6 years, full of claims about aliens on Earth and otherworldly craft? Well,
yeah, it's just bizarre to me that so many media outlets have pushed these alien narratives when the evidence for these things is literally doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. And I get it. People will tell me about personal experience as evidence, Stephen, and testimony as evidence. I mean, some sort of smoking gun, overwhelming proof or evidence of the basic claim, which is that aliens are visiting Earth, right?
Kirkpatrick's Arrow report conclusively states that most, if not all, of those stories are sourced to the same exact group of UFO activists. Based on your research, can many of the UFO claims from the last 6 years be traced back to the same exact core group of UFO true believers?
As we've put into the report, you'll find a section of where a number of these people worked together over the last couple of decades. The story seems to all point back to them.
So that's interesting. And incredibly, it confirms that Stephen Greenstreet's reporting of that group, I believe he calls them the spooky hustlers, is correct. And that's pretty incredible revelation. If you are an objective observer to all of what has happened in UFO land since 2016, to finally know that all of this is traced back to the same core group of people, it's very powerful to me. Very powerful to know it's the same group of people pushing these same narratives over and over and over again.
Due to various legal reasons, Kirkpatrick is prohibited from specifically naming the names of the people in this group. But my previous reporting at the Post has revealed, in detail, their names, faces, and stories. Links to this reporting are in the description below. Some of the people in this group were behind the creation and promotion of a 2017 front-page New York Times story about a secret Pentagon UFO program called ATIP. In many ways, the UFO hysteria of the last 6 years began with this one New York Times article.
I would say that is a correct assessment. all of the current popularity of and proliferation of UFO and alien stories all over media, all over the internet, is all from this poison seed, an article that was completely and totally factually false.
But Kirkpatrick and Arrow officially concluded the main details in that article were not accurate. In 2017, the New York Times reported that the Pentagon had an official UFO program called ATIP, and it was led by a Pentagon official named Lou Elizondo. Is that accurate?
No.
Was ATIP an official Pentagon UFO program?
No.
So there you have it. Wow. Really incredible to see more startling proof and evidence from a government insider that Lou Elizondo and his merry group of spooky hustlers essentially lied to the New York Times. And that's something, I think, somebody that lies to like the World Weekly News or, some of those trash media, if you lie to one of them, that's one thing. But to lie to the New York Times and use the legitimacy of the New York Times to push a completely and totally false narrative, I think it really speaks volumes. Now, the whole thing is only a half hour. Maybe we'll go through it. Just bear with me one moment. In the meantime, we want to welcome all members of the live chat. Let me share my screen again. This is, again, fair use. We're going to be discussing this and talking about it with our live audience. Use it to educate the public. This is fair use.
Lay out, hey, the data says that's not an alien, that is not a cover-up. They get violent. They get offensive. They start sending hate emails and letters and threatening my family, threatening me.
Yeah, and I just want to take a moment to note that Sean Kirkpatrick is not the only person who gets threatened by this rabid Kool-Aid drinking cult members of True Believers. I've also been the victim of that, and people threatened my wife by name in my own live chat. Some genius looked me up on Facebook and found out who my wife was and started threatening my wife by name in my live chat. And what was my sin? Saying that Lou Elizondo never ran a Pentagon UFO program, at least not an official or a funded one, and that he was a liar. That's what I did. But Kirkpatrick went a little further and said there's no proof of aliens and all this other stuff. So he was not well liked when he started coming to the conclusions that he came to.
And I find that beyond reprehensible. When you start coming after my daughter and my wife, because what? I'm telling you that you're wrong, that it's not an alien, that it's not a cover-up, that it's actually something completely different.
Are you still getting threats and harassment since you left?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Every time I say something, I'll bet you after your report comes out, I'll get something.
I bet you he
I
did.
interviewed Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the former head of the Pentagon's UFO office called the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW.
Yeah, he's still
Back in
checking in with me. He's
2022,
okay, Sergeant
Congress
McDonald.
created
He's getting
ARROW
through
to
it.
investigate claims of
Thanks
aliens
for
and
asking.
UFOs that have captured news headlines for the last 6 years. Sean Kirkpatrick was brought on as ARROW's director. For 18 months, under Kirkpatrick's leadership, ARROW looked for the aliens.
Good
They
point.
say they had
Stop licking
access
ice cream
to
cone.
everything,
Yeah.
and that they looked everywhere. After finishing the investigation and completing his ARROW report, Kirkpatrick retired in December 2023, and in March 2024, the report was finally released. TLDR, no aliens. Okay, I'm going to jump right into a series of simple yes or no questions.
And here's where I actually learned something. I often ask people for interviews. I like long form interview, 2 hours, so you can get through whatever questions you have. But some people are very busy and they give you time limit. I once had a congressional aide tell me he could give me 10 minutes. And I wish I had known this trick. So apparently, Mr. Kirkpatrick limited Mr. Greenstreet to a 30-minute interview. So this is a great method I'm so glad I saw this because I'm going to use this myself when people limit the time. You have so many questions to get through. He did sort of lightning round, like just give me a yes or no. I thought that was a brilliant interview tactic when you have limited time with the government official.
Just yes or no. While preparing the Arrow report, did you have access to everything you needed, including classified programs and top secret information?
Absolutely, yes.
Were you ever denied access to anything while preparing this report?
No.
Now, this is interesting because the true believers always made the excuse that Kirkpatrick didn't have the relevant clearances to get to the aliens or the alien information or where the alien bodies were. This has been a completely and totally false UFO grifter talking point for some 18 months now. They've all said, oh, he doesn't have the proper clearances. No, I don't understand how much more evidence Kirkpatrick or the government or anybody needs to show. You know, he's got letters from high-ranking people within the Department of Defense saying that you can have access to anything during your investigation. And here again, he confirms it. Nothing was withheld from him. That's an important point that we all should take into consideration.
Did you have Title 10 and Title 50 authorities?
Yes.
Title 10 and Title 50 authorities are, to put it simply, permissions you need in order to access certain secret government information. Title
I'm sure
10
he does,
gets you access
Patty.
to
Yes.
some secret
Good.
stuff.
I should have
Title
mentioned
50
that.
gets
Yes.
you access to even more secret stuff. So with access to all the top secret information
You're right.
needed,
Yeah, I think he does a good job.
Did Kirkpatrick find any evidence of aliens? Did you find any evidence of alien or non-human
Hi
technology?
there, Eduardo
No.
Gonzalez Nieto.
Did you find any evidence of alien bodies or the bodies of non-human intelligence?
No.
So no evidence. He looked and listened, interviewed a lot of the same witnesses that Grush interviewed. He's found no evidence of alien technology, no evidence of alien bodies.
This is the
Pardon me. I didn't have time to mirror this one, so you'll have to excuse me as we fast forward through those commercials. 1 second here. Let's no evidence of aliens.
Aliens on Earth and otherworldly craft. Well, Kirkpatrick's Arrow report conclusively states that most, if not all, of those stories are sourced to the same exact group of UFO activists.
Yes. The same people, friends. It's all a big club, and I ain't in it.
Based on your research, can many of the UFO claims from the last 6 years be traced back to the same exact core group of UFO true believers?
As we've put into the report, you'll find a section of where a number of these people worked together over the last couple of decades. The story seems to all point back to them.
The stories seem to all point back to them. Same bunch of people that were behind Elizondo. Same bunch of people that were behind the alleged TTSA techno scam. Yeah, it's the same core group of people.
Due to various legal reasons, Kirkpatrick is prohibited from specifically naming the
I
names
wish he could
of the
name the
people in
names,
this group.
but we can
my
gather who
previous
they are.
reporting at the
Yeah.
Post has revealed in detail their names, faces, and stories.
And some of them have been matched up based on the stories that they've told publicly to what's in the Arrow report. And we know that many of the people, that great, I love this graphic, he calls them the spooky hustlers, are among those people.
Links to this reporting are in the description below. Some of the people in this group were behind the creation and promotion of a 2017 front page New York Times story about a secret Pentagon UFO program called ATIP. In many ways, the UFO hysteria of the
point,
last 6
Jaquan.
years began
I hope I
with
said
this
that right.
one New York Times article.
I think it's
But
all black
Kirkpatrick and
projects,
Arrow
personally.
officially concluded the main details in that article were not accurate. In 2017, the New York Times reported that the Pentagon had an official UFO program called ATIP, and it was led by a Pentagon official named Lou Elizondo. Is that accurate?
No.
Is there any reason why the Elizondo crowd hates this guy? Is it any wonder? He basically, just destroys Elizondo's whole false narrative and reveals that Elizondo and all of his buddies, they all colluded to lie to the New York Times and push a completely and totally false narrative, allegedly.
Was ATIP an official Pentagon UFO program?
No.
Kirkpatrick's Arrow report validates and supports my previous reporting at the Post, which revealed that the New York Times UFO article was false and intentionally deceptive. The Times article was co-written by a UFO activist who used as their sources for the article other activists in the same group.
So this is the core group, according to Mr. Greenstreet. I think we can add a few more to the list that he doesn't include, maybe. But yeah, I think he's spot on. These are the same core group of people behind TTSA, behind the Skinwalker scam investigations, behind the wasted government dollars, behind the fake Wilson Davis notes, right? All the same people pushing Skinwalker Ranch, paranormal claims that nobody ever has any evidence for. All the same group of people.
The Arrow report states that many in this group were a part of OSAP, a 2008 Pentagon aerospace technology program that went off the rails when program contractors misappropriated taxpayer funds to hunt UFOs, ghosts, and monsters at Skinwalker Ranch, a supposed paranormal hotspot in Utah. Kirkpatrick says the Pentagon had no idea they were doing this.
So this is interesting. The Pentagon, who give they have $22 million from the Pentagon. The Pentagon doesn't know that they're investigating Bigfoots, dino beavers, poltergeists, ghosts, shape-shifting aliens, and all this other stuff. The government didn't know that they were wasting $22 million on that. I think that this is the source of what a lot of this confusion is with the government statements. The government is embarrassed and don't want to admit that one hand didn't know what the other hand was doing. That's my opinion, and I'm entitled to
The
it.
paranormal aspects of the OSAP program, like Skinwalker Ranch investigations, officially sanctioned by the Pentagon.
No, they didn't know anything about that until after the fact.
After the fact, did the contractors and or leaders of OSAP submit reports to the Pentagon regarding paranormal stuff at Skinwalker Ranch?
Not that I saw.
You said in one of your op-eds that taxpayer money was, quote, inappropriately spent by OSAP at Skinwalker Ranch. Was there an investigation at the time into this misappropriation of funds?
That I do not know.
Well, then how do you know it was inappropriately spent?
Well, because I know it's not in the budget to go and spend money on paranormal research.
It's not in the budget to go and spend money on paranormal research. So this whole idea of that sweetheart deal of Senator Reid giving Bob Bigelow, one of his big campaign donors, $22 million to study a ranch that he himself owned, it turns out that is a sweetheart deal because nobody in the government sanctioned them to spend that kind of money. Well, one person did, I suppose, Harry Reid. This is very shady. But Kirkpatrick just said that there's not money in the budget to study paranormal events.
Over the last 2 years, I have reported extensively about OSAP, Skinwalker Ranch, and this group of paranormal crusaders. You can find links in the description below. A recent addition to this core group of true believers outlined in Kirkpatrick's report is an Air Force reservist named David Grush.
Oh, that's a future thumbnail if I ever saw one. Somebody timestamp this.
Grush is closely associated with many in the group, including some of the Skinwalker Ranch ghost hunters.
So there we go. He is right in there with the whole core group of these paranormal pushers who have been actively manipulating the media and the government for decades now. That should be front page news. That the fact that a bunch of paranormal pushers have actively manipulated the media and the government for decades now should be front page news.
In 2023, Grush went public, to claim that the government is secretly hiding crashed alien UFOs and alien bodies. He also claimed that the aliens
there's got to
had
be
injured
something.
and killed Earthlings. He presented no evidence for any of this, but all the viral news coverage got the attention of some members of Congress who brought Grush
Isn't that
in
interesting?
to testify. Many times during his public congressional testimony, Grush said he could not reveal certain evidence about the aliens because it was super secret and he couldn't reveal the secrets in public. So did he then take his evidence of aliens to Arrow?
Absolutely not. And this is where we get into the fact that Dave Grush has been running from the proper investigatory agency within the government, headed formerly by this Sean Kirkpatrick in the form of Arrow. He did everything he could to avoid them. Now, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but I had at least one source tell me that some of these members of this, what Stephen Greenstreet calls the spooky hustlers, started going into Arrow before Grush was gaining in popularity. And essentially, what I was told is that they quickly figured out that Arrow was going to demand and expect real evidence of claims being made. Stories would not be enough. And the source that I spoke to claims that all of this got back to that core group of people. After all, members of this core group of people allegedly went in to testify to Arrow, including Elizondo, Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff, and others, Travis Taylor. And essentially, this got back, or allegedly this got back to Dave Grush, who knew that his stories wouldn't hold up under scrutiny because he was getting them from the same people who already went to Arrow and had no evidence and were quickly found out to be essentially paranormal bullshitters.
The office both literally looking for evidence of aliens and cleared to hear top secret information?
Do you have patience with
Hold on one second. Geez, I guess the New York Post has the ads turned up to maximum 2. I should have mirrored this one. I apologize. The one time I don't.
David Grush formally invited to speak with Arrow and present evidence of his
This is where it destroys Grush's claims.
Arrow invited him 5 times. That was documented and put into the record.
Did David Grush actually ever come in?
At the time of my retirement, he had not.
Did David Grush, in fact, refuse to do that?
He provided a couple of different reasons at various times of why he didn't want to come in. His lawyer contacted me and had a conversation about it. They did not want to come in.
What Kirkpatrick
did
just
not
said
wanna
here
come
has
in.
been a big point of contention. Because back in 2023, after Grush appeared before Congress, Kirkpatrick publicly said that Grush had refused to speak with Arrow. But Grush, publicly in the mainstream media, said this was a lie. He said that Arrow had never reached out to him. But new official government documents released via the Freedom of Information Act to John.
Yeah, God bless John Greenwald from the Black Vault. You know, I think he doesn't get a lot of credit where credit is due, but a lot of the clearing of the air and clarity that we've been getting about all of this stuff is directly due to the efforts of John from the Black Vault filing all these FOIA requests and getting the documents and getting the information.
John Greenwald show that Arrow had made multiple attempts to speak with Grush. It is shown that Arrow did invite Grush to come in multiple times, and at one point, Grush agrees to come in, but never shows, leaving the Arrow officials waiting in the lobby. Despite all these red flags and debunked claims, a group of congressional leaders have rallied around David Grush and his wild UFO claims. This is the so-called Congressional UAP Caucus. UAP, by the way, is the new official.
He did
acronym
have
for
clearance.
UFO. Some members of the UAP Caucus,
Just
which
to
is
be
currently
clear,
spending taxpayer
Sean Kirkpatrick and Arrow had clearance to hear anything. I'm going to say that one more time. Sean Kirkpatrick and Arrow had clearance to hear anything. And they have letters and proof to back up that they had all the authority required to hear literally anything, classified or not, special access project or not, unidentified special access project or not. They had classification to hear everything. Now, here's where this stuff gets interesting, because these group of senators calling themselves the UAP caucus, they want to look into the truth about these aliens, and they're big supporters of Dave Rush and his claims. That's something else. You know, I know that the government is incompetent, but how incompetent is it when, you know, this is just crazy to me. Like, how incompetent is the government? Well, we're about to see another example of how incompetent. Remember, they're the UAP caucus. They want to get to the truth about the UFOs and the aliens. And there's some really shocking things in this interview.
Resources on UFOs weren't impressed or convinced by Kirkpatrick's Arrow report.
Congressman Tim Burchett, Tennessee, one of the leaders of the so-called House UAP caucus, was asked about what he thought of the Arrow report. Burchett responded, quote, "They're lying to us. They're not telling the truth." Your response?
Well, I have not spoken with Tim Burchett. He has not requested an Arrow brief in the time that I was there, so I am not entirely certain what he's basing his assertions on.
That's interesting. So Burchett could request a briefing from Kirkpatrick, but never did.
Did any of the members of the so-called Congressional UAP caucus meet with you, talk with you at all?
No.
No?
Nope.
It seems kind of strange for a UAP caucus to not talk to the UAP guy.
You would think there are certain members of Congress that do not want to engage, I guess.
That's
did not
interesting.
engage, have not engaged, and they have not come to request anything at the time that I retired.
Even after the Arrow report was released, some congressional leaders announced that they will still continue to pursue many of the UFO and alien claims that were dismissed in your report as unfounded. What are your thoughts on that?
That's interesting as well.
I think, as I mentioned before, that there are, you know, folks that are going to believe what they want to believe, and when they have that level of belief, there is no amount of rational thought that you're going to put in front of them that's going to change their mind. I think it is a waste of time for them to continue to pursue that. Congress stood up Arrow with all of the authorities and resources necessary to go investigate this on behalf of both Congress and the executive branch. And they have done that job. And for them to continue to pursue that and call them liars is actually telling the men and women of Arrow that have been working on this diligently that they are less credible than anybody else that walks in the door.
Yeah, they are less credible than a bunch of wackadoos who have been telling the same stories, usually directly connected to UFO profiteering whores who are making tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars pushing these evidence-free, faith-based belief systems and false narratives. That's insulting, right? Okay, so you guys are just going to believe a bunch of wackadoos that have no evidence. We looked for the evidence. We invited people to show us all the evidence, found no evidence of their claims. But hey, let's waste more government money and resources and time on a bunch of wackadoos who we now know have verifiably been manipulating members of the media and members of the United States government for decades now. This is a problem.
And that they are dismissing their commitment to the Constitution and their duty. And I find that beyond reprehensible.
You come off in general as perturbed about a lot of this,
yeah,
if
a little
not
bit.
mildly frustrated. Why is that?
One of the most frustrating and concerning things that I discovered in this assignment, and I've had assignments all over this world doing a lot of really cool stuff. None of it has given me this level of frustration, because the thing that was that we uncovered was that the number of, for lack of a better description, true believers that have the faith of conviction that the government is covering this up and hiding it. The number of those people that actually exist within the government, within the national security space, people that I've known for decades and worked with on some very sensitive things, to have them sit in my office and tell me face to face,
It's
I'm not going to
disturbing.
help you and support you because I know you're part of the cover up. Even though I'm looking at them going, I only had this job for like the last week. I don't know anything about what you're talking about. And then lay out evidence to the contrary for them to ignore all of that and continue to press forward with allegations is not just frustrating, because some of them are in positions of authority that then make it difficult to get a job done.
Yeah. So essentially, does anybody remember when Rubio said there's one of two possibilities? I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he said either some of this is true, or we've got an awful lot of high-ranking government officials that are complete and totally off their rocker, crazy, wackadoo, right? It turns out, yeah, there's an awful lot of high-ranking government officials that are wackadoos. Look at how many we've seen. Elizondo, high-ranking intelligence, Pentagon person, right? Dave Grush, high-ranking Air Force intelligence. It's disturbing that there's this many wackadoos within the United States government.
Like and actively obstructing how we're doing business, or negating the way we're trying to lay out the evidence. That
yes, I'm
is
aware,
frustrating.
William.
And
Robert.
then
Yeah.
to ensure that my people and my team are safe
It is like
from
Scientology. I agree.
prosecution, because one of the things that I am livid about is the fact that, I walked into this job and was told to go do this. It was demanded of
Black
me,
belt
not
BS.
just by Congress,
You're right
but by
about
the
that.
American people, that I had to be objective and open, follow the data wherever it would go. And I made those promises in testimony that I would do so. But
That's true, William
apparently
Runner. One
does
person was
not
arrested
apply
at his
the other
home
way around.
by the
And
FBI.
so whenever I lay out, hey, the data says that's not what you think it is, it's actually this. Instead of people going, okay, well, let me follow the homework and see how. Okay, you might be right.
Yeah, we're gonna
They
explore a
get
little more of
violent.
that after this.
They get
Mastro.
offensive.
I'm confused.
They
too.
start sending hate emails and letters and threatening my family, threatening me. And it's all right if you want to threaten me, right? Like I said, I've been all over this world, and I've had better people than that chase me around. I don't care about that. But when you start coming after my daughter and my wife because I'm telling you that you're wrong, that it's not an alien, that it's not a cover up, that it's actually something completely different.
Yeah.
That is irritating.
And you had somebody arrested. The FBI had to arrest someone outside your house.
Yeah, just to be clear, if he indeed lied, I'm not defending him lying about that. But, one of the things, Mr. Crichton, that I think is interesting is that essentially the true believers are saying, well, he lied about that Skinwalker Ranch meeting, so that means he lied about everything. Shouldn't the same set of standards then apply to Lou Elizondo and Dave Grush, who have provably lied many, many times? Like, there's a false equivocation here. Like, oh, if somebody we doesn't like, we can point to something that he said was possibly untrue once, then we have to throw everything he ever said out. Well, that should apply to the grift side of things too. If Lou Elizondo has been caught lying multiple times, and he has, then do we throw out everything he said? You guys don't want to do that, though, right? So you guys don't really want to play this game that way. Astro Mastro with a kind and generous $5 super chat says, keep up the outstanding work. All praise to our Zeta Reticuli overlord. I mean, all praise to Cash. Well, thank you, Astro Mastro, for your kind and generous support. We appreciate you. Thanks for appreciating us. Thank you so much. All right, let's try to continue.
House, right?
Well, we had somebody show up at the place. It was very bizarre. But yes, they came and got him.
Yes, and I would like to find out if anybody has FOIA'd the FBI records concerning the trespasser at Mr. Sean Kirkpatrick's house. I would love to read the police and FBI reports, and we may be surprised that we know, or the person that showed up at his house may be somebody that's known in the UFO community. Wouldn't that be a bombshell?
Are you still getting threats and harassment since you left?
Oh yeah, yeah. Every time I say something, I'll bet you after your report comes out, I'll get some.
Regarding the true believers inside government who attacked and fought him just because he said aliens weren't real, Kirkpatrick says he
You'd be surprised at
considers
how
their
huge of a
deep-rooted
grift. There's
beliefs
millions of
to
dollars
be
at stake.
religious in nature, a sort of UFO religion.
UFO
There is
religion.
absolutely
Here we go.
nothing that
Cult.
I'm going to do, say, or produce evidentiary that is
Me too,
going
William.
to
I
make
might
the
try to
true
find out.
believers convert, if you will. I mean, it's almost like a religion. It is basically a religion.
And he considers them to be a potential threat to national security.
There's where
I
it gets
think that is
dangerous.
disturbing and should be a flag for the national security community, because how can you then trust those people if they are not objective enough to understand evidentiary based assertions
Right,
like
Patty.
that? How
Cultists.
can you trust them with our national secrets?
So according to the senior leaders,
So this is where it gets disturbing. So I agree with Kirkpatrick. If these people can't tell the difference between balloons and alien spaceships, I don't trust them with our national security one bit. And that is a threat to our national security. And in fact, I think it was Stephen Greenstreet's reporting as well. We saw that some of these UFO activists were too busy looking for aliens. They missed Chinese spy balloons and other national security threats because they're too busy looking for aliens. Those people should all be fired immediately and should never hold a government position ever again.
of the Pentagon's official UFO office, a UFO religion has infiltrated the U.S. government, influenced the U.S. Congress, and poses a potential national security threat. This seems like front page news, but you won't find it on the front pages of American mainstream media.
I like that. Breaking news, UFO religion infiltrates U.S. government. I think that's accurate. The same core group of people, the people that Mr. Greenstreet calls the spooky hustlers, we can verifiably see they've been manipulating members of the government. They've been manipulating members of the media. It's disturbing.
Who mostly ignored Kirkpatrick's Arrow report, and who continue to publish credulous stories about aliens and UFOs.
The true believer
People
stories. That's
make
what sells.
That leap of, hey, I don't understand what I'm seeing. Therefore, it must
I
be
don't know
an
that they have
alien.
them now. I know they're pursuing them.
There's a
Have
whole
been some
range
news
of other
for verification they haven't,
possibilities
Patty?
between
Maybe I'm
I don't
behind the
understand what I'm
curve.
seeing and it's an alien. There's all kinds of other stuff that happens in there, right? Why people make that jump, I don't know.
Going into an
1 second. Okay, 1 second. Let me share this again. Yeah, I agree, Elmer. Elmer says, 1 second. Elmer says, I think they could tell the difference between balloons and spaceships. They are pretending to believe in aliens for the grift. Good possibility. It could be. Absolutely.
Okay, now for two curveballs. There were two moments during the interview that didn't sit right with me. One was when
This
I
is
brought up the
interesting.
Pentagon's UAP task force.
Next, the task force, the UAP task force.
This task force was created in 2020 in response to sudden public interest in UFOs. There was sudden public interest in UFOs because of viral news stories promoted by this group of UFO believers. In charge of this new Pentagon task force was Jay Stratton, one of the members of this group and former Skinwalker Ranch ghost hunter during the OSAP program. Stratton's
Interesting. I'll
chief
look it up, Patty.
scientist
Thank
on
you.
the task force was Travis Taylor, another Skinwalker Ranch ghost hunter and star of pseudoscience reality shows like Ancient Aliens and The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, nothing says
Stratton brought
credible
into
like
the
that.
task force various paranormal enthusiasts. According to sources, the task force missed multiple incursions of Chinese spycraft over America for years because the task force was instead chasing spooky UFOs.
Okay, yeah, I was right.
But in
Yeah, he did report. Those guys missed national security threats because they were busy looking for spooky UFOs.
Patrick's report, the UAP task force only gets 2 little paragraphs. And those paragraphs basically only talk about how great and successful the task force was. Zero mention of the paranormal stuff. In the same report, Arrow goes into great detail about how this group was wasting taxpayer money chasing paranormal things in the OSAP program. But when members of the same group get put in charge of yet another program, there are zero mentions of it. This report was supposed to reveal all those details, but here it doesn't.
That's interesting.
I brought this up to Kirkpatrick.
Next, the task force, the UAP task force. Did some of the same individuals involved in OSAP go on to lead in or work on the UAP task force?
So to my knowledge, when I came in and stood up Arrow, the task force had only 3 full-time people on it. And everybody else that was tapped across the community, the IC or DFD, weren't full-time members of the task force. They would support.
So that's interesting. There's only 3 people that are full-time to solve the UFO mystery, and the rest of the people were consultants or contractors that they brought in, wackadoos like Travis Taylor and wackadoos like Eric Davis.
With data and information when asked, but I think that was about it. And those 3 people lived in the Pentagon.
Okay, notice how he didn't answer my question here. So I ask him again.
Right. Did former OSAP people involved in the OSAP program, were they involved, in, at least initially, with the UAP task force?
I believe so.
He finally answers, yes.
So that's interesting.
Yes. How does that happen? Who put them in those roles?
No idea.
Okay. Are you aware that, you mentioned some of the third parties that came in. Are you aware that some of those third parties that the UAPTF brought in were a number of people with fringe beliefs like ghost hunters and psychics, and they were brought in to be analysts?
I was not part of and don't know anything about how they ran the task force. I was
Yeah, and one of the things that I found incredibly interesting is one of those UAPTF analysts, according to Stephen Greenstreet, he said this in a space, had paranormal experiences where a teenage girl ghost would tickle his feet. That's one of the UAPTF. Talk about wackadoos, right? Incredible.
actually out in Colorado during all that.
Okay. But during your Arrow historical report, you didn't see any of that information?
I think the rest of that part of the review will come in volume 2.
Now we can't wait.
Oh, really? So there's more on the task force coming in volume 2.
I don't know for certain. I'd have to direct you back to Arrow.
Okay, so he's saying that maybe all the wacky, crazy stuff about the task force will come out in a new forthcoming report.
Like I said before, the intent was everything we had by the cutoff date for volume 1 is in volume 1. And then anything that we missed or anything that they want to add in there, they will put in volume 2. So,
okay.
I, for one, can't wait to see this volume 2, because volume 1 just was filled with bombshells that I think really destroy this false 2016 forward UFO threat narrative that all these same group of people have been pushing since 2016.
Because just for an outsider like me, amateur researcher, from the outside, it looks like, I read your report, I see your on-record statements, and you're like, man, this group has just been telling tall tales and, and taking advantage and pushing their stuff and inappropriately spending money. And then I see that same group involved with the UAP task force, and I see them more or less doing the same exact thing all over again. You would think that after OSAP and the Pentagon goes, oh my God, what is this group doing? That they would be the last people in charge of an official task force after that.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, I don't know who made those decisions. What I do know is when I was asked to come in and the task force was officially stood down, I started from scratch.
I'm not satisfied with this answer, but Kirkpatrick only gave me 30 minutes for the interview, and I didn't feel like eating up more time. The second moment comes when I ask Kirkpatrick.
Okay, so this is where we get into this scandal about the Skinwalker Ranch briefing.
If he had a previous history working with UFOs, or if he had any previous associations with members of this core group of true believers.
Before Arrow, did you have any interest at all in UFOs?
Not beyond the occasional movie.
Okay. So he had no
Before
interest
Arrow,
in
did you
UFOs.
perform any duties regarding UFOs or paranormal phenomena?
No.
Did you attend a 2018 Senate Armed Services Committee briefing on Skinwalker Ranch?
I asked him this question because in a previous report of mine, I revealed that in 2018, Brandon Fugel, the owner of Skinwalker Ranch, went to Washington, D.C. and gave a briefing to multiple Pentagon officials about the spooky stuff at the ranch.
You know, I often wonder if maybe some of these people within the government are just watching the Skinwalker Ranch television show or reading the Skinwalker Ranch books. And because they have a little bit of power and juice like that, they say, hey, let's get these guys in here and hear about this because maybe they're fans of the show or the books or who knows, right?
At the briefing were some of the members of this group. Fugel told me Kirkpatrick was not only there, but was leading the briefing about Skinwalker Ranch.
Did you attend a...
Yeah, and I think that's very misleading because we can see from the pictures, it appears that the PowerPoints and everything were generated by the Skinwalker scam crew. So why would he be leading a briefing with materials just handed to him? This does not make sense. And this is where a lot of the confusion over this issues is. Brandon Fugel is saying that Kirkpatrick was leading the briefing when it appears Brandon Fugel was leading the briefing. I don't know.
A 2018 Senate Armed Services Committee briefing on Skinwalker Ranch?
No, I attended a briefing at the request of the Senate Armed Services Committee on what was at that time associated with the ATIP OSAP research that was going as an independent outside reviewer. And I gave them my opinions at that time.
That's interesting. So he's saying that the meeting was about OSAP and ATIP research, which we already know that the error report kind of painted as a waste of taxpayer time, resources, and money.
Who invited you to that briefing?
It was one of the staffers.
Okay, one of the staffers on SASC. Got it. And you're saying that this was like an offset of OSAP ATIP?
That's my understanding at the time, was it was a spin out of those programs.
In 20.
But listen what he just said. It was a spin out of those programs. So maybe the Skinwalker scam crew are telling people this is a spin out of the OSAP ATIP programs to get what, funding, or who knows? This is where it gets murky and very confusing.
2018. Wow. Okay.
So those programs were ended. The research by these independent people, because this was not an official government briefing. This was a briefing by people that were not associated with the government. So,
okay, so this briefing was not an official DoD Pentagon briefing.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
That's interesting. So it wasn't an official Pentagon or DoD briefing.
Brandon Fugel, the owner of Skinwalker Ranch, says you, quote, led that briefing in 2018 and claims you said you were, quote, already fully aware of the reality of UFO phenomena. Is that accurate?
I wasn't leading anything. I had another job at the time, and I was brought in as an independent, objective reviewer of what the SASC was being told.
Okay. Because this offered a little bit of a curveball in my reporting because I did a whole deep dive on Skinwalker Ranch. Brandon Fugel told me about the briefing, said, you were there. And he said that, Kirkpatrick said that UFOs are real in this briefing. And when I reported that, I think the UFO community at the time was like, oh, Kirkpatrick's a UFO guy because Fugel said so. And then when your report came out, they're like, wait, what the hell?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that was quite a curveball.
Kirkpatrick did not say aliens were real.
Or UFOs were real, that the reality, quote, the reality of UFO phenomena is real.
No, I never said that.
Before Arrow, did you have any association with any of these folks, any of the people in this core group of believers?
No.
So like when you went to that briefing in 2018 where you said OSAP ATIP folks were there, you didn't know any of those people?
Not at the time.
Okay.
Well, that's where it's interesting as well, because at this briefing were people like Hal Puthoff and other closely associated with this core group of people.
That I remember. I think I met all the people associated with this all at that time. Was probably around the first that I'd ever met them.
Okay, so he admits that he was at this unofficial 2018 Skinwalker Ranch briefing, but only on invitation and only as an independent, objective reviewer. Okay, but seriously, what was he even doing there? How can he say that he had no interest or duties regarding UFOs before 2022 if
Yeah, I don't know. This is where I kind of differ or disagree, I suppose, with Mr. Greenstreet. I agree with most of his reporting, but I don't know. And again, I'm not making excuses for Kirkpatrick. If he indeed lied, he should be treated the same way as the grifters, the UFO grifters who lie. But part of me thinks, this man is high-ranking government official, probably attended an awful lot of meetings. Attending a meeting that somebody may have mentioned UFOs or UFO research, I don't know that him saying, no, I didn't have any official duties, especially if he was brought in to an unofficial briefing. This one is murky to me. But the true believers are holding on to this for dear life. Oh, no, he lied. He did have involvement with UFOs. Oh, he was at that meeting.
he's attending briefings in 2018 about one of the most famous UFO spots on planet Earth? I could have pushed him more on this, but time was ticking and I wanted to cover more topics. I emailed Kirkpatrick some follow-up questions, and he said this: I ended up at that briefing because a congressional staffer asked me to attend as an objective third-party scientist to listen to the presentation. I did not know it was about Skinwalker Ranch until later. I don't recall it being referenced by that name during the briefing. He doesn't recall Skinwalker Ranch even being referenced?
That's interesting because Brandon Fugel did provide the PowerPoints, and it was all about Skinwalker Ranch.
I replied by sending Kirkpatrick this PowerPoint presentation that Brandon Fugel claims he presented at the briefing. Skinwalker Ranch is all over it, and it's all about Skinwalker Ranch. Kirkpatrick replied, that's not the briefing I recall seeing. The briefing I saw was less polished.
Well, that's interesting. So is Brandon Fugel playing a bait and switch game here? Who knows?
Come to think about it, I don't believe it was 2018 that I attended a briefing on the Hill. I believe it would have been 2017. In 2018, I was stationed in Colorado. I don't recall ever meeting Fugel. Maybe he's confusing the two meetings. So I reached out to Brandon Fugel about Kirkpatrick's comments. Fugel responded, are you trying to get Kirkpatrick in trouble and destroy his credibility? You better be careful with what you report. To which I replied, no, I interviewed him and brought up the 2018 Senate Armed Services Committee briefing you had told me about. I included his response below and would like to give you an opportunity to respond or clarify. Fugel responded. He, meaning Kirkpatrick, was at that meeting on April 19th, 2018.
Yes, and it turns out that the metadata, this is where good detective work comes in. Brandon Fugel provided some raw image files of pictures taken of the meeting, and the metadata supports Brandon Fugel's assertion that the meeting indeed took place April 19th, 2018. So is this really that big a deal? Is Kirkpatrick a liar now? Or maybe he got the time and date of the meeting that he attended surrounding these events wrong. I don't know about you, but I have trouble remembering what I did, last month, let alone 5 years ago or whatever. So I guess on the true believer side, oh no, Sean Kirkpatrick's a liar now. We have to discount everything he says because now he's a proven liar. I wish they'd apply the same standards to the UFO Grift Squad if they get caught making an inaccurate or false statement once, right? But it is what it is. And of course, those more skeptically minded, I think I have seen people sort of making excuses. And again, to be clear, if Kirkpatrick indeed lied about this for whatever reason, he should be treated with the same treatment that the UFO grifters and Grift Squad who get caught lying should be treated.
I gave you an accurate account of the meeting and have video, photos, and witnesses. I then asked Fugel if he could provide any of those videos, photos, or witnesses. Fugel did not respond at the time of this video's publishing. This is all very confusing, and at
Yeah,
this
it's very,
point,
definitely
I simply
confusing.
don't know who to believe.
Are you a part of a government cover-up to hide aliens or non-human intelligence?
No.
Is it possible that you are unknowingly part of a cover-up to hide aliens or non-human intelligence?
Not likely.
So there we have it. And just to be clear, later, Brandon Fugel would go on to show Mr. Greenstreet the evidence and proof that his claims, at least the claims of Kirkpatrick being at the briefing, were accurate, because he provided essentially, the photos and the metadata, which clearly show that Kirkpatrick was present at that meeting. But as is usually the case, and one note to make: does it look like Kirkpatrick is leading the briefing here when Brandon Fugel's the one standing up and giving a PowerPoint presentation? So anyway, Stephen Greenstreet says, update number 3 at Brandon Fugel has provided me with the original source photo, and metadata indeed shows creation date of 4/19/2018. So there you have it. This is what passes as a scandal in the UFO community. Of course, I think, to be fair, that a great number of UFO true believers are looking for a reason to discredit Sean Kirkpatrick, because they don't like that he found no evidence of extraterrestrial visitation, no evidence of extraterrestrial spacecraft, no evidence of extraterrestrial or alien bodies. And he pretty much destroys the false narrative that's been pushed since 2016, 2017. But now the true believers have one little carrot to hang on to go, oh, no, he must be lying about all that because he lied about this meeting. Honestly, most of me thinks this is nonsense. I don't know. The only thing that I can relate it to, friends, is that I once had a corporate job. I worked for a large corporation, a Fortune 500 company, well-known company. In any way, at this company, we were subjected to so many meetings, like a ridiculous amount of meetings. I can't tell you, I can't even recall how many. It would be like 3 or 4 2-hour-long meetings with PowerPoints and whatever every week, 2 or 3 of them. And I don't know. Honestly, after a while, through all those meetings and presentations and PowerPoints, at least me, my eyes glazed over, and I didn't pay real close attention. So let me know what you think in the comments of the video or podcast or in the live chat here. Is Kirkpatrick just misremembering things, or is he a complete and total liar? Let me know what you think. I know what I think. I think he may just be misremembering things, but I'm not here to defend him. If he indeed intentionally lied and didn't just not recall these things correctly, that's a real problem. Also problematic to me is, why is the government wasting so much time on the very same group of paranormal pushers? It's all the same people. It's Eric Davis, Travis Taylor, Colin Culliher, and Jay Stratton, and all of these same people. Hal Puthoff. It's all the Skinwalker scam crew. They've already wasted $22 million of government money, studying poltergeists and werewolves, and coming up with zero evidence after $22 million was invested in that effort. And then they try to stand up this Kona Blue project to waste more government money. You've got the same group of people involved in the TTSA, which has been described as a techno scam that scammed the American public out of millions of dollars. And now the same group of people, with some new members, I suppose, because Brandon Fugel's their new owner. He wasn't involved in the $22 million scam, OSAP, but He's the new Skinwalker scam owner, still closely associated with some of the original OSAP people, Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff, and others. And now the government's wasting more money having meetings about Skinwalker. I think that should be a bigger story here, but it seems to get lost in the shuffle of this strangeness. Christopher Wester, thanks for two things: being a member and a kind and generous £5, or excuse me, £5. So why does not anyone put a stop to the Puthoff gang? This is very weird. They've been at it for a long time, Chester Wester. Thanks for being a member, and thank you for your kind and generous being a kind and generous benefactor. Thanks for your kindness, generosity, and support. All right, friends. I've actually gotten through most of what I wanted to get through. I would appreciate questions or comments for me. Please put them in all capital letters. So I'll take some comments and questions from the live chat. We want to take a moment to remind you to follow me on Twitter. It's at Stephen Cambion, just my name up there on the screen. For the benefit of those who may be a bit unfamiliar with government waste and Skinwalker Ranch, I have a piece here. Perhaps the most concerning thing about Skinwalker Ranch and its promoters is the allocation of taxpayer-funded resources towards investigating phenomenon lacking empirical basis. Over the years, various government agencies, including the Defense Intelligence Agency and OSAP, have reportedly devoted substantial funds towards studying UFOs and related paranormal occurrences at the ranch, including the study of ghosts, werewolves, poltergeists, UFOs, shape-shifting monsters, dino beavers, and more. Critics argue that such expenditures represent a misallocation of public funds, diverting resources away from more pressing societal needs. Moreover, the lack of tangible results or meaningful insights or data derived from these investigations raises questions regarding their scientific merit and ethical justification. In the face of sensationalism and anecdotal accounts, scientific skepticism emerges as a guiding principle for discerning truth from conjecture. Skeptically minded folks advocate for a methodical, evidence-based approach, grounded in critical thinking and empirical validation. They emphasize the importance of maintaining a healthy skepticism towards extraordinary claims while remaining open to new evidence and alternative explanations. Skinwalker Ranch stands as a testament to the enduring allure of the unknown, the paranormal, and the human fascination with the supernatural. However, a skeptical examination reveals a narrative fraught with unsubstantiated claims and questionable expenditures. Despite the lack of empirical evidence, the mystique surrounding Skinwalker Ranch persists, perpetuating a culture of speculation and intrigue. So, Skinwalker Ranch, I think, is always going to be one of those things. It's like, the curse of Oak Island. It just never goes away. They never find real smoking gun proof or evidence, but it just seems to never go away. So we'll take some questions and comments from the live chat. Please put them all in capital letters. Researchers should be given cameras and other resources to investigate and be reliable instead of a bunch of money. Yeah. Listening to this interview again for like the 8th time this week, Kirkpatrick seems to actually just be here to lessen any negative blowback on the government. We did our job, nothing to see here. Some people believe that. Astro Mastro says Puthoff and the gang are like Catholic priests. When they commit a crime, they just get moved to a different place to do the same thing all over again. Good point. Okay. Craig William, he really said he had to start from scratch, but alas, the clock is ticking. No follow-ups. Charlie Phillips, confidential briefing. Who classified it confidential? To my knowledge, a civilian cannot classify anything. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Eduardo says, Mr. Sean K is completely unreliable. Well, he was reliable enough to get to the bottom of a bunch of grifting scumbags who've been lying and selling false fairy tales for decades now. So there's that. And I get it. You true believers are going to use anything you can to disparage that man because he told you that your faith-based belief system based on no evidence and a bunch of scummy grifters telling you lies for years isn't real, right? So of course people don't like him. I really don't know. Anna Louisa says, come on. What do politicians going into the UFO kingdom? That's appalling. I think it's appalling that they're wasting so much time, money, and energy on a bunch of nonsense. Like, how much money is the government going to waste on the Skinwalker scam crew and all of their evidence-free claims? You got Travis Taylor, who can't tell the difference between a goddamn fly flying by a camera and a spaceship going 30,000 miles an hour, right? Charlie Phillips says, one was Travis Taylor, who lied to his Skinwalker teams, stating he kept it secret because they were trying to catch the men in black. Ridiculous. These men are delusional. Yes. Anna Louisa says, I wish human beings had a red light and it was activated whenever they are lying. That'd be great if there was like a light up or their eyes turned or their nose just grew like Pinocchio, right? I don't really know what Stardust is referencing. I may go for tomorrow for a little bit. Talking about another show, maybe? Yeah. So questions or comments for me, please put them in all capital letters. And by the way, this is a bonus show this week. Those of you may be aware that previously we were doing shows Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. But I had some extra material this week, so we'll do probably 4 live shows. We'll be live every night this week until Thursday will be the last show for the week at 9 p.m. I think so. And I've got some production videos that will be premiering. Genuine Argyle says, can you even imagine how stupid that presentation must have been? DOD observing fireflies and moths. Yeah. Yeah. And model rockets being shot off constantly, right? Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. I forgot to play. At least I think I forgot. Yeah, I probably did. I forgot to play one of the wonderful Brandon Fugel, music video that I have. For those unaware, Brandon Fugel used to make really bad electronic music, and somebody sort of captured. Of course, I'm not going to be able to find it, but keep those questions and comments coming. All capital letters, please. It lets me quickly know and identify that you are interested in me sharing your comment. I swore I had it. You never know, right? Yeah, someday I'm going to get organized with my bumpers, friends, because I am completely and totally a mess here sometimes. I don't know why I can't find things so often. I always pull them down to the bottom if I intend to use them, but then I look later and I don't see them. So, yeah, my apologies. It's just Brandon Fugel's old terrible electronic music, so we're not missing that much. I will find it for a future show, apparently. Let's take some more comments and questions from the live chat. I'm way far back in here. Let me get caught up. And for those unaware, we will be live every night this week, and Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. Bob Burkett says, a guy living near a base and wonders why he sees flares at night. Smith says, how are the tomatoes doing? Well, they're just getting started. They're only about this big. So, yeah, for those unaware, I spent some time. We had a rainy day at the cabin, and when it rains, I have to do something inside. So I have been I have been working on the cabin greenhouse. I'll share a shot of that. That's going pretty well. Not real big on having a green thumb, but it's starting to look like a greenhouse in there. I spent a significant amount of time building this greenhouse room. It's an addition on the side of the cabin. And I can't tell you how happy I am that this, that this all kind of worked out. And last year, to be honest with you, I think it was late. It might have been June or July, and I put a bunch of plants in the greenhouse. But this is the first year that I actually tried to grow anything in the greenhouse. So there you go. Confirmation that my greenhouse, which I built with my own two hands, my sunroom, whatever you want to call it, on the side of the cabin, actually works and is a viable nursery for plants. I grew these from seeds. First time I've grown seeds in a long time. Genuine Argyle says, this is a good possibility. Kirkpatrick forgot about the Skinwalker presentation because he fell asleep right after the photo was taken. Are you sure those aren't pot plants? Yes, these are green beans that you're seeing in the no cannabis. No cannabis. These are green beans in the front window, and these over here are pepper plants and corn plants. That's all that is in this photo. So a lot of people have said, wow, a greenhouse. I know what you should grow, Stephen. I prefer to just go to a dispensary and not be bothered with all of that, especially I'm not sure what the legalities. I think in the state I'm in, they're going to allow people to grow a certain number of plants, but I haven't kept up with that. One misremembered meeting doesn't make a complete liar out of somebody. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about 2018. So that's 6 years ago, Patty. Do you remember every meeting and everything that you did 6 years ago? I don't think, I think this is a mountain in a molehill situation. Algaray says the cabin greenhouse looks great. Thanks. I appreciate that. All those cups once contained beer. Yeah, they are party cups. I don't know why, but my dad always used those and had good results. And when I went to the store, I saw those and went, oh, this is the kind of stuff I'm not totally great at gardening. I just kind of follow or copy what my father did that worked, right? Can we focus on that April 28th meeting and Kirkpatrick's claims? The deepest intel guys in America are still getting the runaround since Roswell, scamming billions over budget. Yeah, I don't know, Jacqueline. I think that at least what my research and reporting shows is that there's an epidemic of UFO gold digging whores, and they're going out of their way to essentially make every UFO dollar they can. They never have evidence. It's always chase the carrot, and big things are coming, and disclosures coming soon, and we're going to force the government to tell us the truth about those aliens, and you never get to the proof, right? Sandra McDonald says these shows are just long-form advertising for machinery, etc., used free of charge on show. I don't know what you mean, Sandra McDonald. The machinery used on the show. Okay. Dear love eating weed. Not sure if you get muntjac. Well, I don't know about that, Smith, but I once planted 50 tomato plants and 50 pepper plants. The first year I was there, I just found a patch of ground that was sunny, not too many trees, and I planted all these plants, and the deer ate everything down to the roots. We got not one pepper, not one tomato. I was so pissed, especially because to plant anything there, you basically have to dig with a crowbar because it's so rocky. I was so pissed off. I spent like 2 or 3 days planting 100 plants. They looked great. I watered them, they were starting to sprout up. Deer came along and ate all 100 plants. So now I know you have to put a fence up. Troll says, I gave a packet of those 15-year-old beans to my brother. He planted them. He said he grew 4 or 5 inches in a few days. That's interesting. I didn't know that you could store seeds that long. But I'm kind of thrifty. So if I'm at a garage or a yard sale and I see seeds, even if they're 2 or 3 years old, I buy them. Occasionally you'll get a whole big bag of them from somebody having a yard sale for a couple dollars. And they don't germinate as well as this year's, but you still get plants out of them. So I don't know how long you can wait on seeds, but 1,500 years, that's something else. Bobby Broadway, if you have no sun in a cave or underground, you could sprout seeds to eat, I learned. Seed sprouts. Yeah. Oh, I want to mention, I just want to thank Anthony from Unidentified S4. That UFO Grifter music video that we played at the beginning of our broadcast is from him. He kindly sent it to me and said, your audience would like this, or gave me permission to play it here. Stardust says, yeah, deer will eat everything. Yeah. Well, lesson learned. I didn't know. I never lived in the woods, Stardust. I came from the city when I originally started the cabin. I didn't know anything about deer or bears. I knew to stay away from the bears, and deer I thought were harmless, but I didn't think that they would eat everything down to the goddamn roots. I was so pissed I didn't get one tomato, one pepper. Weird barks. Yeah, so I guess we've done our due diligence. What can I say about this situation? I really think that a lot of people are just, it's a matter of not liking this man and deciding whether he is being truthful or whether he is lying to everyone about this meeting. It seems to me that just as, and again, I'm not defending him. I'll send your hate mail. A lot of people are like, you better cover this, Stephen, and show everybody that he lied. I think this one is a little murky, and I think a lot of people are making a big deal about this because they hate this guy. We have to view this through the lens of Kool-Aid drinking cult members. They hate that this guy said Lou Elizondo never ran a real Pentagon program. They hate that this guy said, found no evidence of alien technology, found no evidence of recovered alien spaceships, found no evidence of recovered alien bodies. They hate this guy. They hate him. So, of course, people, I think, are going to take advantage of this situation to disparage him. I still believe that the UFO Grift Squad members who feel so butthurt over his destroying their false claims and allegations and evidence-free stories, they could prove him a liar, show some evidence that your stories really are true and that you're not a UFO grifting scumbag loser that's taking advantage of many vulnerable people to make money like a UFO gold-digging whore, right? You could do that. Maybe you should do that instead of disparaging a guy who just can't remember a meeting from 5 years ago. But I don't think we're in a situation where things like facts and evidence are going to start becoming relevant here because this is UFO land. Let me get rid of that banner. So we'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, friends. And I will, we've got a full week for you. I've got a lot planned for this week. Hopefully things go as well as they did tonight. I want to take a moment to apologize for the technical problems we had when switching the studios here. It appears that things are being worked out and things are working much better. So, and things are going to happen. You switch to a different studio. Sometimes things don't go real well, but I think we've got all the bugs worked out. And I'd appreciate, anybody who is going to send me some nasty messages about shows that happened a week or more ago. Look, we've done all the technical work that we can do to ensure smooth broadcasts. And by the way, just so everybody understands, any show host that has problems with drop frames of audio or lagging or bad audio, we hate that. We don't want that. We want you to have a good experience. And most of us, including me, do everything we can to ensure that good experience, but sometimes things happen. I think a lot of the issues were something to do with StreamYard, actually, but I can't be sure of that. So, but in any case, yeah, I apologize for those problematic broadcasts we have when first moving, I think things will be good going forward. So we've done our due diligence. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are people making too big a deal of this? Or is there so little going on in the UFO community that this is the big drama right now? The guy can't remember a meeting from 5 years ago or the details of the meeting. I don't know. I do think it's strange that he said he had no involvement in UFOs for the government, but maybe he meant in an official capacity, because in this situation, and again, if it sounds like I'm making excuses for him, I'm not. I think what we really need is somebody new to interview Kirkpatrick and drill down on this situation and get him to clarify what he said in this original Stephen Greenstreet interview. And I want to thank Mr. Greenstreet for doing a great interview once again. I think he's closest to the truth. He's the only mainstream media person that is actually getting, the truth out there. And everybody else is just posting, woo, alien stories for clicks and views, and they're not investigating shit. Investigative journalism is essentially dead, especially when it comes to this. There's no money in it. There's no money in taking a month to really investigate something and then put out one video. You know what there's money in? Putting out garbage, fake stories every day for a month, because then you beat that guy doing a whole month of work on one story 30 times over. I'm not sure who it was, but somebody recently said that this clickbait sensationalized media landscape we are in is the enemy of good journalism. People don't have time to actually do good journalism anymore, but thankfully a few people still are. I'm thankful for that. You have my word that I'll do my very best to do the best that we could doing that work. My favorite shows here are the ones that I did do deep dives and really dug in and really investigated. Unfortunately, those take forever to produce, it's unfortunate, but I love those and I will continue to try to do those. So that's all I got for you, friends. I'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you will be here with us. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night and God bless all of you.